What is up, guys, and welcome to the Casual Wrestling Show, the #1 wrestling show meant specifically for casual wrestling fans. Each and every week, I, the notorious Nerdy D, topples the biggest questions in pro wrestling. You can find the show every week on YouTube and on your favorite podcast network. If you enjoy the content, make sure to join the Casual Community Discord group. The link will be in the description of the video and the podcast. And make sure to hit the like button on YouTube and hit the little bell notification to be notified every time we drop a new casual wrestling gem. All right, so let's start. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. I'm sitting here. I had said last week, I had promised last week that I wouldn't do a podcast if LA Knight didn't win the Money in the Bank briefcase. And here we are, 1 week removed from LA Knight not winning the Money in the Bank briefcase. And I'm sitting here and I want to talk to you guys. I have things I need to say. I have things that I have to get off my chest. I was going into Money in the Bank 110% sure that LA Knight was coming out of London holding the Money in the Bank briefcase. Now, contrary to what people told me, We Too Deep told me, people in the Discord told me it wasn't happening. I didn't believe any of that shit. I chose to go with my heart. And this is what happens when I invest into professional wrestling with my heart. I get left heartbroken. And so here I sit this week. I'm heartbroken. I was genuinely mad after the first match at Money in the Bank. I don't know that I processed the rest of that night correctly until maybe the Bloodline match started. I snapped out of it in hopes that Damian Priest cashed in his briefcase, which he didn't do. I don't know. So, but let's talk about it. Let's discuss it a little bit. We got to look at this. This is right now, I'm focused on LA Knight. I'm not focused on Damian Priest. So what's next for LA Knight? Now that LA Knight, we've gotten through Money in the Bank, he doesn't hold a contract for a world title opportunity. What do you do with the most over superstar in your company? You know what I'm hearing? You know what everybody's telling me? You know what the dirt sheets are saying? Austin Theory. That's where we're headed with LA Knight. Austin Theory. Come on, man. Come on, Triple H. We know LA Knight is bigger than the United States Championship at this point. He is too far along in his career. He is too up there in age to be wasting his time in a potential Austin Theory LA Knight SummerSlam match for the United States Championship. Get the fuck out of here. Come on, man. You guys tell me, CWC, you tell me, what feels like it would be more exciting to watch on TV? Seth Rollins versus Damian Priest or Seth Rollins versus LA Knight? Which buildup would you be more excited to see? What is going to have the better promos? I have nothing against Damian Priest. Don't get me wrong. I have nothing against Damian Priest. I just think when there is an opportunity, an organic build, I've only seen this like 2 other times in my wrestling watching lifespan, and that was with Bryan Danielson, and it also happened with Fandango. There was a push for Now, Fandango never quite, okay, I'm lying. Maybe Zack Ryder as well. But those 3 were 3 people who organically got over, and I've been told time after time, Vince McMahon doesn't like organic builds. I thought we were fucking done with Vince McMahon. You guys keep telling me we're in the era of Triple H. I thought Triple H liked NXT guys. LA Knight's an NXT guy. What is going on? LA Knight versus Austin Theory. This is the consolation I get for having to sit through watching Damian Priest raise up that briefcase. And can we talk about the unnecessary LA Knight hate that is coming from the IWC and the internet world? Can we talk about the unnecessary LA Knight hate that is coming from Kevin Nash and a bunch of washed up wannabes? I don't understand this necessity for guys who retire. They get old, and then they want to jump on the internet and take shits on guys who are in the prime of their career. I get being critical, but I don't really know what you can be critical about LA Knight. Everything in wrestling is rinse and repeat. So what? LA Knight has elements of The Rock. He's entertaining. That's all that matters. What happens to these guys that they think that when they retired from wrestling, what the crowd thinks doesn't matter? If LA Knight is getting the biggest pop of the night every time he comes out, what does it matter who he resembles? What if it matters if there's elements of Stone Cold Steve Austin? What does it matter if there's elements of The Rock? I got a new one. I heard someone on Twitter say that LA Knight is the Wish version of Alex Riley. Let that shit sink in. Alex Riley. Come on, man. Y'all gonna have to do better than that. But they keep moving the goalpost for people. They keep moving the goalpost. You get over with the crowd, that's not enough. Now you're a copycat. We keep adding names to the list of recipes that go into making an LA Knight. Okay, so we've got a sprinkle of The Rock. Okay, so we've got a sprinkle of Stone Cold. Okay, so we got a sprinkle of Alex Riley and The Miz. All I see is the recipe for a top tier superstar. Why is it that if you have any kind of personality these days, you get shit on and they immediately try to draw some kind of comparison to an older superstar? I can play the fucking game too. Like if you guys want to, like, IWC, you want to play the game? And I'm speaking to the WWE IWC because they exist as well, but you want to play the game? Let's make comps then. Zelina Vega, Sasha Banks, 100%. Sasha Banks leaves, Zelina Vega steps up and just outfit, hair, everything completely takes over the role. Grayson Waller is just a new version of The Miz. I'm not mad at it, but it's obvious that's what they're going for. Austin Theory is being groomed or was attempted to being groomed to being the next John Cena. Braun Strowman, he's big like the Big Show. I guess he's got to be the Big Show. Damian Priest openly admits to taking elements from Razor Ramon. But no, I don't hear anybody fucking complaining about that. And then the most blatantly obvious is Rhea Ripley, who obviously is the direct reflection of China. And let's be honest, none of that is a problem. I don't see the issue. Wrestling has always been rinse and repeat. But why is it an issue when LA Knight goes, these are my favorite wrestlers. These are a lot of people's favorite wrestlers. I will take elements from each of these people, put them together, and create a version of LA Knight that the crowd can get behind. And guess what? It worked. You can draw comparisons in so many different places, not even just with superstars. How about with storylines? How about with elements that are used within wrestling? So you're going to tell me from now on, because this is the only fair way we do this. You're going to tell me from now on, every Mexican wrestler that shows up and wears a lucha mask and does high-flying moves is just trying to be Rey Mysterio. That's what you're telling me. You're telling me that we're going to typecast these people into such a narrow category that has to be. You're going to tell me that every tag team that shows up and uses an angle where it's building towards a breakup, they want to be the Rockers. And any wrestler who ever shows up and tries to go against an authority figure, that's got to be Stone Cold and Vince McMahon. It absolutely doesn't make sense. You're telling me that wrestlers cannot speak in third person or they're The Rock. You're telling me that if they have an over-the-top personality, that's The Rock. You're telling me if their promos have a similarity to maybe the best to ever do promos, that's a problem? That absolutely doesn't make sense. Isn't the entire point of WWE to get over? Whether it's getting over as a babyface, whether it's getting over the crowd as a heel and getting booed, Dominic Mysterio, I can't argue with Dominic anymore. I tried arguing with Dominic. Dominic's over. Dominic gets booed by the crowd. I can be against it all I want. I cannot understand it all I want. But against my fucking will, Dominic Mysterio is over, and I'm okay with it. It's exciting, right? So why are we fighting LA Knight? And it's this push that scares me because it's this push to hate LA Knight that bothers me because it makes me question, can LA Knight win a world title within WWE? Does Triple H have the confidence? Does Vince McMahon have the confidence? And I know he has the casual audience, but does he have enough of that fucking smelly IWC audience to actually ascend to the mountaintop where they would allow him to be champion? I know one thing. He'd be the most entertaining champion that WWE has had since John Cena. He would be entertaining as fuck. I can guarantee you that LA Knight versus anybody else on the roster will be more exciting than what you're going to get in this short title run that Damian Priest may get to. Because what Damian Priest is being set up for is for some kind of title run against Finn Balor. And that's it. Outside of that, you tell me what is real intriguing. And this is not meant. What's so unfortunate about this? This is not meant to be Damian Priest hate day. It's just not, because I actually really enjoy Damian Priest. I just think when you see an organic opportunity, you cannot miss that opportunity to take advantage and maybe possibly build one of the biggest superstars that you will have in your company for the foreseeable future. It just doesn't make sense. But you tell me, who are you excited to see Damian Priest wrestle? Let's play hypothetical. Damian Priest at SummerSlam. Let's book it. Finn Balor versus Seth Rollins, what we all thought was going to happen at Money in the Bank. Finn Balor wins the title. Damian Priest comes out, cashes in. Damian Priest is now your new champion. What does that look like going forward? Like, you guys tell me that. I have a poll up on YouTube right now where you can answer me. Do you think that WWE and Triple H got the Money in the Bank winner correct? Or do you think that, like me, LA Knight should have been the one to win the contract? Either leave a comment in this video or go jump on that poll and let me know whether I'm right or wrong. All right, so speaking of Damian Priest, since he won Money in the Bank, we're going to have to talk about it. Let's talk about Damian Priest and let's talk about Io Sky. I got it right that time. I've been told I say Io Sky, Io Sky. It is, in fact, Io Sky, and I've worked on it all week. So Io Sky. Let's talk about who Damian Priest and Io Sky should and will probably cash in on in the future here. So Damian Priest. It's got to be pretty obvious, right? The bloodline is off limits to Damian Priest. There's no chance that Damian gets involved in that storyline. I think at least, we're talking SummerSlam, but I think for the foreseeable future, that belt belongs in that family, and that's what we're going to get. SmackDown, that story is well written. So it's pretty obvious that Damian Priest has to go after Seth Rollins, right? Or he has to go after the World Heavyweight Championship. That's what this was all kind of designed to do. And I kind of laid it out in the last segment, but it almost writes itself, right? We're going to have to go Finn Balor, Seth Rollins one more time. This time, Finn Balor wins that match, and Damian Priest cashes in successfully and becomes your new World Heavyweight Championship. I'm not mad at that story. I actually like that story. Do I like it more than LA Knight? No, but I actually am okay. It is a perfectly good. It's better than perfectly good. It's a great story that can work. It's just not what I want right now. As for Io Sky, I think I've heard a couple different people say a couple different things, but one of the most interesting stories I heard proposed was Io Sky failing at cashing in. I don't think there's ever been a woman who's failed to cash in. So it's interesting that if Io Sky got an opportunity against, it's probably going to be Asuka, Charlotte, or Bianca Belair. If she gets that opportunity and Bayley cost her that match, then we could potentially get the breakup of Damage Control and the beginning of a solid feud between Bayley and Io Sky. I like that. I'm not mad at that. I could live with that. And so I don't think that has to be talked about too much. I'm more interested in Damian Priest, to be honest with you. I'm more interested in how this goes. Where does he really cash in? It's got to be SummerSlam, right? Because I don't foresee wanting to hear Damian tease the money. He's just not great at teasing the Money in the Bank. The senior Money in the Bank thing, I'm not a big fan of. And so I don't want him teasing this for the next 6 months like Austin Theory did. With the men's Money in the Bank this year, I want to see it, kind of happen pretty quickly. I think SummerSlam is the right time to do that. My only issue with all of this is that it removes, once again, Seth Rollins probably from the title picture and isolates him from being in that story at least for a couple of months, right? Because if you look at it, the way it makes sense is Damian Priest cashes in on Finn Balor at SummerSlam. So then at the Premium Live event, Payback, more than likely based on that name, you're going to get Damian Priest versus Finn Balor. I assume Damian wins again, right? So then at Fastlane, you get Damian Priest versus Finn Balor with some kind of stipulation, Hell in a Cell, cage match, whatever it is. You get Fastlane, can have something to do with cars, I don't know. Then I don't think we've had a confirmation on if we're getting a crown jewel, but after that is Survivor Series, and you could definitely go in the direction of Judgment Day versus whatever Finn Balor's new faction is. Because it seems like we've seen the makings of Finn kind of working behind the scenes for something. And it's obviously we're watching the decline of the Judgment Day as we know it, which in its own is a little bit interesting, seeing that on the opposite brand, the Bloodline is collapsing at the same time. It kind of leaves WWE in this void of having like a full strength faction, even though I do believe Finn Balor is in the works of putting together a new stable. Let me ask this question. And this isn't something that I believe is going to happen, but it's something I like to throw out in the universe just to see if it sticks. Is there any chance that Finn Balor's new faction includes Edge and we get full circle with Edge and Finn Balor and let's say JD, what's his name? JD McConaughey or whatever, McConaughey or whatever. Maybe those three versus the Bloodline in some form or fashion? Not a Bloodline. Judgment Day in some form or fashion? I don't think that happens, but it's interesting, right? Edge has got nothing else to do. More than likely, though, the Judgment Day just continues on with Damian, Rhea, and Dom because that's working. You can get Finn Balor out. You can probably get a pretty solid babyface turn for Finn Balor out of this thing, even though I like Finn as a heel. But Damian Priest is definitely someone I can get behind having a solid run as champion. Like, I think there's some things that they're going to have to tweak within his character. I always comment on the Spanish stuff, and it's not, the Spanish stuff doesn't bother me because it's Spanish and I don't understand it because Lauren can always translate it for me. So I have a leg up on knowing what's going on. The Spanish stuff bothers me because it doesn't make sense with Damian Priest's character isn't inherently based in his culture, right? Damian Priest is more of a supernatural feeling character, so I don't understand the Spanish. I also don't love the idea of calling yourself Senior Money in the Bank. I think that's about the least intimidating thing that you can call yourself. Senior Money in the Bank. It's also worse when he's 40 years old, because now it starts to just sound like Senior Money in the Bank winner, right? Sounds like he's an old guy. But I thought that this Money in the Bank was one of the better Money in the Banks that I've seen in a while. I haven't left a Money in the Bank surprised in a long time. And so I'm not mad. My guy, LA Knight, that's who I wanted to win, but he didn't win. And I can live with that. The other thing that I didn't love on Money in the Bank was the Logan Paul and Ricochet spot. So let's talk about it. Because I want to take a second to talk about it. Because the IWC always jumps on me. They always tell me, all you do is talk about it. No. I talk about danger in unnecessary spots no matter what logo is behind that spot. So similar to AEW Forbidden Door, where I was super critical of Will and Kenny, I'm going to be super critical to Ricochet and Logan Paul. Hey guys, there are 100 safer spots that you could have attempted through a table rather than trying to do a Spanish fly on a guy who's got 4 career matches under his belt. Like, I understand Logan Paul, Mr. Crazy, wants to go over the top, needs a big spot at every Premium Live event, but it is okay for somebody, be it Ricochet, be it Triple H, be it whoever was booking the match, it is okay for them to just say, no, you're not going to do that. It is also okay for Ricochet as a veteran. And it's more than just okay. I think it's Ricochet's responsibility. Ricochet should have audibled out of that spot at the first sign it wasn't going to go well. Instead, Ricochet just heaved Logan Paul over the top of the ropes, and that could have ended extremely poorly. That is one of those spots where they are okay right now because that's just the luck of the draw. They're not okay because of the skill that they possess. And the pop that you get for that spot, same with Will and Kenny. The pop you get for that spot, 3 minutes. It lasts 3 minutes and then people move on from it. Nobody's still talking about it. I mean, Logan's talking about it on social media, but he's talking about it in the way Logan knows how to make things interesting. But no wrestling fan is going around going, "Oh my God, that was an amazing spot." I'm talking about it because I want to talk about the fact that when the risk exceeds the reward, just don't do it. It's stupid. It was a stupid spot, just like the AEW spot was a stupid spot. And now AEW fans, IWC, you can all be happy because, see, look, I'll talk about it no matter what logo is connected to it. All right, so speaking of logos that are connected to things, it appears that Ronda Rousey is presumably done with WWE and possibly making a return back to the UFC. So the question that I see asked the most is, was this too soon for Shayna to turn on Ronda Rousey? Obviously, this is circumstance, right? This is, if Ronda's got some other shit to do, we've got to fast forward and do what we're doing right now. My answer to this is obviously this was way too soon, but it is what it is. Because this could have been one of those stories that filled half a calendar year. There were so many ways that you could have booked this thing into a gigantic storyline. I would have loved to have seen Ronda and Shayna on a 6-month tag team title run to finally be met at like WrestleMania by a tag team consisting of, I mean, let's go like Charlotte and Becky. It's like two epic people that have to bind together to get the titles off of Ronda and Shayna because they're just too dominant. I'd even go for, like, at WrestleMania, the return of Sasha Banks and Bayley, one of the most epic women's tag teams in WWE of all time. That's the level that this needed to build up to show like an insurmountable, like there was just no way that Ronda and Shayna could lose. And so then they lose those titles at WrestleMania. Shayna becomes upset because of something Ronda did, or maybe you start leaking the rumors that Ronda wants to leave and she's uninterested in WWE and she's not focused anymore. So Shayna turns on her, and then at Backlash you have that big blow off match, which is Shayna unloading on Ronda Rousey. And we get this full proper scenario that catapults Shayna Baszler into the spotlight, makes her a superstar, sends Ronda on her way in kind of a compelling way that's good for wrestling. But instead, here we are. We're going to rush through this thing in 4 weeks. My issue is that Shayna Baszler takes no real rub from this story at this point. 4 weeks is too rushed. It feels more just like this is something that Ronda Rousey had on a bucket list to do before she left WWE. She just picked a magical day that she wanted to leave. And so there it is. We've got to get to this storyline and we've got to tell it as quickly as possible. Now, is Ronda done with WWE forever? I'm thinking so. I don't think she comes back. I think she got her fix. I think she got a taste of what she wanted to taste. And I don't think we ever see a consecutive run with Ronda Rousey again. Maybe comes back for some one-offs. Sure. When she's bored. But I will say, in the defense of Ronda Rousey, I think from the day she got into WWE has painfully booked Ronda Rousey into the worst positions that you could ever be pushed into. They gave us the wrong version of Ronda Rousey. They didn't give us anything that we expected or wanted, and it didn't work every step of the way. The proper way that Ronda Rousey should have been booked since day one is the same way that Tony Khan protected Jade Cargill for so long. It's the same way WCW protected Goldberg for so long. Ronda Rousey should have had quick squash matches. Just quick. 2-minute, 3-minute, 4-minute matches where she come out, squash her opponent, doesn't talk on the microphone, just wins. 2 years of dominance. She needed a Roman Reigns type winning streak, but not even with a title. She should have just come out and dominated the division. And instead, what we got was forcing Ronda to be babyface, forcing Ronda to talk on a microphone when clearly she was uncomfortable, forcing Ronda into these intricate wrestling matches with people like Shotzi who it never quite worked. And now we're being robbed out of a long-term story between Ronda and Shayna. It's just, since the beginning, it has been a clusterfuck of booking. It's all built up to this moment. And I really do believe Ronda is a celebrity wrestler. She never became, I never quite elevated her to full-time wrestler. I still think like guys like Logan. Logan's still a celebrity. When you see spots like the Spanish Fly, you go, oh no, he's still human. He's going to mess up. Until he gives me a long, 6-month run, Logan Paul is still a visitor in the world of wrestling. A very solid one, but he's still a visitor. And so I think the role of celebrity wrestlers is to come in, you get the attention from the fans, but it is to put over somebody in the company and give them a rub moving forward. And while Shayna Baszler and Ronda Rousey are very good friends, and Shayna will get the smallest of small rubs from this situation, it is not what it could have been or what it should have been. And I will acknowledge that, yeah, great. On her way out, Ronda Rousey is going to do her best to sell for Shayna Baszler night in and night out. She's going to try and put her over, but sometimes it's just too little too late. Now, what does this mean for the rest of WWE with Ronda leaving? Well, what it means to me is the women's tag team division is once again unimportant. Once again, the women's tag team division goes back to being an absolute mess and ultimately a clusterfuck. It's just a mishmash of teams. They make no sense. I mean, it almost at times, when I see the WWE women's division, I don't know if there's a purpose to this, but it almost feels slightly comical. Like Sonya Deville and Chelsea Green are comical. There is no real credible threat right now. And they're going to risk taking somebody like Raquel Rodriguez, who has a lot of potential, but they're going to typecast her into this big sister role where she just takes these kind of wounded tag team partners and builds them up and wins tag team belts on her own, but which in turn just discredits the rest of the division. The WWE women's division is extremely deceiving. There's so much talent there, but most of it is just misused. So you're telling me you can't create a viable team with Candice and Indy Hartwell. You can't make that work. Got to give it some TV time. You have Cora Jade just wasting away in NXT. Seems like she'd be primed to be in a tag team on the main roster. You have Doudrop, who you've basically booked into oblivion. You have Emma, who is wasted night in and night out on TV. You have all of this new tag team women's talent that were called up, but we only see them in these championship scramble matches, and that's never going to resonate with a casual crowd. There has to be some kind of story outside of, I just want the title. Like, you're going to have to give us a reason to get behind these other teams. And the problem for me is, even your champions, Liv and Raquel, they don't excite me. Like, on a wrestling level, there is nothing that gets me excited to watch a Raquel Rodriguez and Liv Morgan match. I get that there is a level of the IWC and these fuckboys who are interested in the way Liv Morgan looks. That's great. Good for you guys. That doesn't work for me. I'm not watching the wrestling because of the way they look. I'm watching wrestling because I like wrestling. And so you have Raquel Rodriguez, who is booked as the overpowered babyface, kind of the same problem that Bianca Belair gets herself into. And you have Liv Morgan, who is always booked as the extreme underdog. And they never really fight through any real adversity. And they've never really fought any variety of opponents. Look back and tell me who Raquel and Liv have faced, and it's probably like 6 people. It's like for titles. It's just a lack of effort put into a division. But then they keep trying to throw it out in front of us and go, why don't you guys care about this? So what's the fix then, right? Because if you're going to complain about it, you gotta offer a solution, right? And that's what I'm here to do. I've said it before. A quick fix in WWE for a lot of problems would be everybody should have to register a partner. Whether or not you want to or not, that it would be a hilarious 3 weeks where people are just matching up and they have to register a partner. Within WWE corporate, they have to go to somebody, this is my partner in case I'm in a tag team match. And so then we'll start to see these weird alliances take place, but we'll also start to see some cohesiveness between groups of two people, even loners being forced into a position. Look, it works on AEW. They're doing it with Adam Cole and MJF, and that's absolute gold. Odd couples work. So forcing everybody to find a partner just automatically gives you this robust tag team division for anybody who is not involved in a single storyline. Now you have a group of people to pull from, but you got to start building chemistry before the championship scramble match. You want another answer to how you fix the tag team divisions in WWE? You add rankings. Just give them a ranking system. Make every tag team match worth a set number of points and watch the rankings and see how people get invested in certain matches because they're worth points. It's that simple. But if you continue to just week after week do championship scramble after championship scramble, it's not going to work. Where the hell did the Street Profits go? Like, on just a whole nother note, these teams just disappear. And this is the time behind the scenes on social media, on behind and backstage, you could be building stories and building chemistry, but instead we just both men and women's tag team divisions in WWE are an absolute shit show right now. All right, so the next thing I want to do on the show this week is something I've wanted to do for a little while, just couldn't figure out how to do it, and I think I've kind of gotten it straightened out now. The next thing we're going to do is I want to give the opportunity to other podcasts or other podcasters in the wrestling space that I enjoy and I listen to from time to time. I want to give them an opportunity to podcast for you guys on my show, and then once they say what they need to say, I'll jump in and kind of expand on what they said and break it down for a casual audience. So without further ado, this week, I want you guys to welcome We Too Deep, the host of the Slapping Meat podcast, which comes on every Wednesday. And so this is what he's got to say, and I'll jump back in when it's over.
What's up, y'all? This is We Too Deep 413, part of the casual wrestling community here, and as part of this, Nerdy D asked me to give my opinion on Roman losing, because I was mad, man. The cool thing that we do is, we sit here during the premiere live events, we'll discuss the show, and it's fun, it makes it entertaining, and I was legit mad on Saturday about the result of Roman Reigns taking the pin. Now, I want to explain. I'm not upset that the team lost. I predicted the Usos to win. I'm just mad that Roman took the pin. It made no sense to me. At this point, it still makes no sense to me. People have tried to explain why it made sense to me. Maybe it doesn't click. Maybe the way I'm looking at it right now is I'm going to watch the story, because I've learned throughout the story never to guess where things are going, because they're going to go probably in 4 different directions than what you actually think is. I've done numerous episodes on the Slapping Me to Wrestling podcast, which is my show Wednesdays and Saturdays. They typically drop around 8 a.m. I've done plenty of episodes trying to predict where the Bloodline story goes, and every time I do, I think for about 2 or 3 days on the story, think I have the greatest idea ever, and then they don't do it, and they do something much better. And so what I've learned is I probably shouldn't be a writer. Or what I've actually learned is that this story is so good that you could go 4 or 5 different directions that most people don't think of that they're going to go. Right? And so I'm going to let it play out before I'm super angry at this decision. I've calmed down a little bit, but I still don't think it makes any sense. Like, what did we build Roman Reigns as being 1,000 days plus as champion? Never been pinned. It's been, December of, 2019 since Roman's been pinned. And then you have him get pinned in a tag team match that ultimately, maybe it's just my assumption, but I assume the Roman getting pinned would be in a one-on-one singles match, and it would actually have this sort of meaning behind it. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't mean nothing. It obviously means something that Jey Uso won the match. I understand why you would have it happen here. I just feel the more simple and more enjoyable ending of Roman's streak here would have been either at SummerSlam or WrestleMania to have Jey Uso have the same moments he's had in this match. You know, the kick out where it was inadvertent, arm to the groin, or, talking about Jey Uso, I believe, was the first one to pin Roman Reigns in the WWE, in like 2014, using the same move he pinned, right? They did go back. You could have still had those moments at SummerSlam with Jey becoming the new tribal chief and being undisputed WWE champion. And so that's my complaint, is I feel that they missed the mark with having Roman. It almost feels like you built him to be so unbeatable that my ending, I'll just go ahead and sort of tell you what my assumed ending was, is Solo takes to the pin here. Roman, over the next month leading up to SummerSlam, pushes Solo around, makes Solo feel worthless about, how could you lose? You're supposed to be the better brother. And then he turns on Roman at SummerSlam. There's no one in Roman's corner now. And now Jey Uso becomes champion because Roman has no one there to fight his battles. To me, that's the better ending of the story. Now, I'm not going to say that where they're going is going to be bad. I just felt it would be better. And so my complaint is it almost made Roman being unpinned for almost 4 years. I'm not going to say worthless because that's an amazing streak, but I felt like it was a weak ending to the longest lossless streak or longest win streak I can remember ever since I've been watching wrestling. He almost went 4 years without being pinned. And he gets pinned, I don't know, just him being pinned in a tag team match that wasn't for the title, it just doesn't sit well with me. Where do we go from here? Am I wrong? Am I thinking?
All right, so I want to touch on a few different things that We Too Deep said here in this video, because I think I agree with 99% of what he said. Maybe everything, maybe 100%, but let's go 99% because I never like to, at some point I'll find something to talk about. But let's start with one point that he made, and that is the point that this Bloodline story is so good that there's a litany of directions that it could take and still be the best thing on wrestling television. I saw Michael Cole say on the Pat McAfee show that he truly believes that this Bloodline stuff is award worthy. Award shows should look at them and give them consideration for, what is it, an Emmy? I think it's an Emmy for TV, right? That they should be, in the running for an Emmy because this Bloodline stuff has been so good. So I agree with what We Too Deep was saying in regards to the fact that, you can guess all you want with the Bloodline stuff, but it always goes in a different direction, and it always seems to surprise me how much that I like what we're watching. But this is when wrestling is at its best, when there's multiple branching paths that you can take, and none of them are predictable or inferior to the other one. So I'm genuinely surprised when I'm watching and I don't know week to week what to expect. The worst wrestling is when it makes, it's the wrestling that makes people want to listen to a podcaster, right? I can guess everything that happens and you guys think I know so much. No, it just means that wrestling is super predictable at the time. Like if you really look at the tropes and the nuances, you can typically keep up. Now, when you let your heart get involved, sometimes you make decisions like LA Knight that aren't correct, but for the most part, you can follow what's going on. And so We Too Deep said, this is what's made the Bloodline so good, is this ability to go, he wants it to go one way, it doesn't go that way, but maybe 3 weeks from now, we all look back and go, man, what happened at Money in the Bank was phenomenal. And it's the same with me wanting it. I think I predicted it a whole different way that it didn't go. And I'll look back in 3 weeks and go, man, Money in the Bank was so phenomenal. But this is the funny thing. When we were watching Money in the Bank, the premium live event, we were all in the Discord. I don't think I realized exactly what upset We Too Deep during the Bloodline match or after the Bloodline match, because I couldn't see past the blood that was in my eyes from the thing I was upset about at the beginning of Money in the Bank with LA Knight's loss. But after going back and rereading and rewatching the match, he's exactly right as far as I'm concerned with everything that he said. I'm on his side 100%. This was not the moment for that pin to happen. I'm okay with Roman Reigns losing. I've never been someone who needs to protect Roman Reigns, but I do think Solo Sikoa should have took that pin. I like the idea moving forward that Roman looks down on Solo because the Usos got one up on him. But the magnitude that the WWE is trying to sell me that Roman Reigns being pinned for the first time in forever happened during a tag team match, I don't like it. It definitely didn't have the same kind of sting that I thought it would have if that was a single match. I'll go one step further too than even We Too Deep did, and I'll say that I think the night that Roman actually got pinned for the first time should have been the night he lost the title. That's it, point blank. Because here's the problem. If this is a one-off loss, let's write this up as if this is just one-off and then Roman goes on another continued streak of dominance. Maybe he fights Jay and beats Jay at SummerSlam. Then this was all for nothing. This was all just to create a headline and just restart and prolong the Roman Reigns story. But if it leads to Roman dropping the title at SummerSlam, then why not just hold off and have that pin happen at SummerSlam and make it just astronomical? That doesn't make sense. From a casual, selfish point of view, I don't really see the significance of the loss. So I get like everybody's going to try and sell me on the idea, but it's been 4 years since he got pinned. No, I get it's a deal. It's a big deal, but it's like an NBA team going or an NFL team going 17-0 in the regular season. And it doesn't work with NFL. Let's do NBA. It's like an NBA team going undefeated in the regular season and then getting to the playoffs and winning a series 1-4. Like, cool. The other team won a game, but Roman's still champion. And if he continues on with his path of dominance, then what? Jay got lucky? Like that part doesn't make sense. But We Too Deep asked, where do we go from there? Where does the storyline go? And I think that's the right question. That's the question that has to be asked. Because I think we can take the elements of what he said and inject them into this story still. I think Solo losing or Solo not taking the pin, he can flip that and start to lose respect for the tribal chief after the loss. I think that the cracks will continue to be formed. And I think that you might see Paul Heyman starting to align himself a little more with Solo Sikoa and a little less with Roman Reigns, and Roman might take notice of that. But I really wonder, is this really the end for Roman Reigns? Or are we headed for like a 6-month breakup story? Are we going to try and drag this thing to WrestleMania? It seems weird that with all that the bloodline has been, that it doesn't end at WrestleMania. It just seems too poetic for it not to end at WrestleMania for me. And if I have my way at this point, I think I'm with We Too Deep, and that I think, at SummerSlam, maybe let's just get it over with. Let's have Jay win the title, but maybe that's not the end of the story. Maybe Roman takes a break, takes a few months off so we can forget about him, and he comes back, wins the Royal Rumble. I mean, I'm not against that. Goes on to face Jey Uso at WrestleMania and gives Jay the proper WrestleMania moment of beating the tribal chief at WrestleMania. Maybe Roman even wins the title back pre-WrestleMania and then Jay wins it back. I don't know. There's so many ways this thing can go. But it would give us 5 or 6 months of fresh matches if Roman drops the belt at SummerSlam. But make sure to check out the Slapping Meat podcast every Wednesday, hosted by valued member of the casual community, We Too Deep. And let me know in the comments, do you agree or disagree with our opinions? And what are your thoughts on Roman Reigns taking the pin at Money in the Bank? Now, I'm going to continue using We Too Deep as a jumping off point here because in the casual community Discord during Money in the Bank, there was a funny kind of side conversation that took place. And it was pretty split. It looked about 50-50 between whether we liked or disliked the overseas crowd and their tendency to hijack shows. I fall on the side of absolutely loving batshit crazy overseas crowds. I like the chants. I like the songs. I like the boos. I like when they get bored. I like it all. I like that they react to what they see. And they have inside jokes like singing Bailey's song, singing Seth Rollins. I like all of it. I am there for it. I think that a dead crowd in WWE is so much worse than an out of control, rambunctious, overseas style crowd. I call it like the post WrestleMania crowd. That's what it feels like. And I can see the flip side. I can see where it annoys some people, but I just think versus if I have to choose between two, I will always take the over the top rambunctious crowd. Like, I like AEW crowds. I don't get that they're absolutely batshit crazy and delusional and they overreact to everything they see. But if you paid $100 and something to go there and watch wrestling, you should overreact. You should cheer for what you like. You should scream holy shit for things that aren't worthy of holy shit because you're there to have fun. I tend to believe that the overseas crowds, they tend to stray into this area that we call taking over the show when the wrestling gets lazy. When the storytelling gets lazy. And I think that there's a little bit of an accountability that gets held over WWE when these crowds try to hijack shows. Like, I understand that there's pacing to matches and that guys, you can't, everything can't be high spot. You got to take some time to rest, but you can still tell story in that downtime. And when the action dies down and the story dies down overseas, these crowds start looking for something to do. It's what they do in soccer, right? When you watch a game like soccer, this is not meant to be a knock on soccer, but when you watch a game like soccer that is typically scored 1-1, 2-2, very low scoring games, very, very low action compared to basketball and football. So when you're used to that, there is an element of having to entertain yourself during the times where the action isn't as high. And I think that's what happens with professional wrestling. But you also cannot blame the crowd for singing Seth Rollins' song for an hour when 4 times in a match he jumps up on the ropes and puts his hand on his ear and makes a call to action to the crowd to get them to sing. Like, WWE definitely panders to the overseas crowds or to international crowds, should I say. It doesn't even have to be overseas. It's international. And I think the problem is if you're not a fan of it, unfortunately, I think you're going to see more and more of it because of what happened at Backlash. I think that they saw Backlash, a premium live event that they didn't think was going to go over as well as it did. And they saw when they pandered to the crowd with guys like Carlito, Zelina Vega, Damian Priest, Bad Bunny. They took these elements that appealed to a very specific group of people. It brought the energy up in the arena, which then in turn the watcher, the viewer at home goes, oh, there's a lot of excitement. I'm excited. And I think that overall you get a more positive output from an event when the crowd is lit up. And I think that's why, it's for that reason that WWE decided to pander to the London audience. It's why they brought John Cena out. They knew they were going to get that big pop, and they had John Cena pander to the audience. I can't believe they had John Cena come out and tease a WrestleMania in London with absolutely no announcement to make. I thought for sure he was going to go, well, guess what? 2026, we're here. This is a thing. John Cena did a 10-minute speech that absolutely meant nothing. It was just pandering to the crowd. And pandering to the crowd, they sacrificed Grayson Waller, which it does nothing to Grayson Waller, but it also really does nothing for Cena. Just seemed like a casualty that doesn't have to happen. 10 minutes, that was a long segment. I thought, there was a part of me for a second thought, hell, this is where Randy Orton comes out and shuts his ass up. That's the best heel turn we could have got. But, like I said, Money in the Bank, it was just a product of Backlash, the pandering to the crowd, the crazy crowd. WWE likes the energy. So my overall thoughts of Money in the Bank, after letting it settle in, it was a weird show for me. Because when I grade it match by match, it's an A show. It's absolutely an A show. This was another, when you look at the premium live events this year, they've been good. WrestleMania's been good. Backlash was good. Royal Rumble was good. Money in the Bank has been good. But this was the first one that happened to me this year. It just wasn't anything that I wanted personally. And that's okay. I think there's a part of you that has to come to terms with wrestling can be good even if it's not what I want to happen. We have to come to those terms when we watch other professional sports. When we watch football, our team doesn't always win. We can still enjoy the Super Bowl. When we watch basketball, our team doesn't always win the championship. We can still watch the NBA championship. That's what this was for me. This was a lot of good wrestling. It just my teams didn't win. And so, when I go match by match and try to critique it, everything was better or as good as it was expected. The women's Women in the Bank match, phenomenal. The men's, very good, even though my team didn't win. I thought that the Usos and the Bloodline and the Civil War, very good, even though it didn't end exactly the way I want. There's this weird phenomenon in wrestling, right? We want everything not to be predictable. We want wrestling to feel fresh. But then when it actually isn't predictable, I feel weird when the show's over because I was so wrong about that. It's a little bit uncomfortable, but it's actually, when I look back, this is what wrestling's supposed to be. So in that form or fashion, here I go. I'm going to make some more predictions. I want to put together my early SummerSlam card predictions. I'm going to drop them right here, right now. I think some of the obvious ones, Ricochet versus Logan Paul, that obviously got set up in the back. They've got a face-to-face coming next week. That's pretty much a lock for SummerSlam. I'm going to go Jay and Roman. We'll find out more tomorrow, but I think that's where that story's headed. I'm going to go Becky and Trish, the final match. I think Becky finally goes over. It's been in the works. Drew Gunther, I'm excited about that. I've been told, begrudgingly, not excited, but LA Knight versus Theory. Okay. Cody versus Brock trilogy. We've got Finn versus Seth. I think we get Finn Balor versus Seth with a Damian Cashin. I think that happens at SummerSlam. Bianca versus Charlotte versus Asuka. I don't know that I love the dynamics of that. I think honestly, something fun would be a kind of a tiered match where let's do Bianca and Charlotte first match of the night, and winner gets to face Asuka later in the card, like a depleted. So they'll be beat up a little bit. I don't love the triple threat dynamic there. I'd rather it be a winner fights the champion later on, maybe even on SmackDown. Maybe we have SmackDown be Bianca versus Charlotte, give us a hell of a match, and then going into SummerSlam, just give us one or the other versus Asuka. And then this is just a long shot. I'm throwing this out in the universe. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn versus Riddle and Randy Orton. I don't know if that could happen. Seems like it could work, right? KO and Sami retain. Randy gets mad at Riddle, turns on him, and then at Payback, we could get Randy versus Riddle. What we've been waiting for anyway. All right, so this next topic is something I haven't had to do in a long time, and that is to directly address the IWC. We've had a good run. It's been 6 or 7 months that I've just been able to kind of live in my own world and talk about what I want to talk about, and they've left me alone. But this past week, I said some things that tipped the balance of the IWC and took them to the dark side, and now they're all up in arms about me again. So last week, I posted a clip on TikTok about Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay, because they hate when I fucking say Ospreay, and I do it on purpose because it reminds me of Ocean Spray. So I do it on purpose, but they hate when I say Will Ocean Spray. But Will Ocean Spray and Kenny Omega had a match at Forbidden Door. And lo and behold, the IWC cockroaches came out scrambling from their mom's basements to stitch, duet, and comment on this little clip that I dropped about safety in AEW. Now, it saddens me. It really does sadden me. This is real. This isn't me playing a character or doing a bit. It genuinely saddens me that there are so many people who watch wrestling who truly believe that it is an entertainer's job to put their health and safety on the line when, one, entertaining fans, and two, because they get paid a certain amount of money. Like, there was a subset of IWC. These are real comments I got that told me, based on the amount of money that Kenny Omega makes, he should be willing to be dropped on his head. I shit you not. I was told that multiple times. Now you do understand, right? IWC, you can do your job at a high level and earn a lot of money without doing stupid shit, without dropping a guy directly on his spine. Like I had other people tell me after I clearly watched the video at least 50 times that how could I not see that Kenny Omega landed on his shoulder? No, that's where you want to believe he landed. He landed on his head. We've all identified that. You're not going to convince me otherwise. I had people tell me, well, you just don't understand the significance that move has to this storyline. I don't, and I never will, and I don't want to. When shit's unsafe, I don't know what it could do for a story, but it ain't exciting people like me. And then I had one IWC, we'll call him an IWC general, who tried to use an analogy on me, and I hate analogies because analogies never work because people always tailor their analogies to exactly what they want them to mean. But he used an analogy on me, and he told me the story of a plumber. He told me the story of a plumber that was fixing my toilet, and he told me this story as a way to explain to me how wrong I am for having an opinion because I've never laced up wrestling boots. I think what he exactly said is, and this is funny because it's ironic that his plumber and toilet story is a shitty analogy, but here we go. So here's the hole in his logic. He says that if a plumber comes over to my house to fix a clog and tells me I need a new toilet, that I would be the type of guy to argue that and say that I know better just by assuming and assuming that I would tell him how to do his job, even though I'm not a plumber. Okay, cool. That analogy by itself makes perfect sense. Here's the problem with that analogy. You're right. I'm not a plumber, but I do have a general idea of how the pipes work. I have watched enough people do plumbing to understand what a clog is. So if a plumber comes over to my house and he tells me that he needs to replace my toilet, I would say, sure, I believe you. Even probably, how much does it cost? Let's get started. He says $500. I go, cool. I see him walk back to his car and he grabs the necessary tools to do the job, right? A wrench, tape, plumber tools. And he comes back inside and I believe, all right, he's going to remove my toilet in the way a plumber removes a toilet. But this is where the story gets fucked up. This is where it splits. What if that same plumber walks back to the car and he grabs a stick of dynamite and then he walks back into my house and he goes, I'm going to remove your toilet now. And he sticks the dynamite under the toilet and he lights the fuse. You don't think I'm going to step in and go, whoa. I know you're a plumber, but that's fucking stupid. That's not going to end well. I'm more than likely going to say, hey, bro, dynamite's a perfectly fine way to remove a toilet, but there's going to be some fucking bad implications that happen after you do that. It's completely unsafe and it's stupid. Now correlate that back to a wrestling mentality if we want to use an analogy. Kenny Omega can be a wrestler and even a good wrestler, but he can still do stupid things in the ring. And I can still, with my own two eyes, see how stupid those things are. He's not immune to it. Now, let's go one step further. I may not be a wrestler, but I do have a Division I sports background. I do have education in kinesiology. I do understand the body enough to know the kind of impact that you do and don't want your body to take. Can Kenny Omega do whatever he wants? Sure. He could be a plumber and fix a toilet any way he wants possible. But if he tries to fix my toilet with dynamite, I'm going to call him stupid every time. Now, I said something in the Discord this past week, and I think it fits here, and I want to read exactly what I said because I took time to articulate the statement because I was pissed off at the stupidity of the IWC at a point in time. But here's what I said. I said, I find it fascinating how in so many areas of life we value, and this is everybody, values the insights of spectators as much as those who actually do something, right? As fans of movies, we value movie critics, even when they're not directors. As people who enjoy food, we take the reviews of food critics, even though they're not chefs. And we watch ESPN night in and night out and watch sports analysts do what they do, even though most of them have never played professionally. What I do for wrestling is I bring a casual fan's perspective to pro wrestling, a viewpoint that is 100% valid and as interesting as any other person who makes wrestling content. Now, as for the dangerous stunts, just because an act is impressive, that doesn't make it right. The gladiatorial games of ancient Rome, they entertained so many people, but today we recognize the human cost was too high. It's not, we understand as people, we can't go watch people die. Similarly, the long-term health of wrestlers should always take precedence over a moment of thrill and entertainment. This should never happen at the cost of someone's well-being. It's that simple. If you are arguing against this point, at this time, I don't know what the fuck to tell you anymore. Like, it's not even an IWC versus casual thing. It's just about human decency. You know? But here's my problem. This is the biggest problem. If there was no merit to what I was saying, if I was just a crazy person who didn't understand wrestling, why is it that they always get mad and overreact to what I say? Why is it that 400 of these guys who've jumped on trampolines in their backyards with a pair of wrestling boots on come out and tell me, bro, I used to be a wrestler? Like, I don't give a fuck. So what, you used to be a wrestler? That doesn't mean that being dropped on your head, you have a better perspective than I do. It just doesn't mean it. The reason they all get upset is because they know they're wrong. You know you're wrong. You wouldn't react if you didn't know that it was wrong. You just want to be, because they live in this IWC, AEW cult. They have this mentality where they're forced to defend it. You guys saw tonight. I went after WWE. I talked about the spot with Logan Paul and Ricochet. That wasn't okay. It was an unsafe spot. So I'm glad that I can agree with AEW and IWC guys, because they're the ones who've all pointed it out to me. It's funny that they've all come to me and gone, well, what about this spot? No, you're right. That one was fucked too. So now we can agree that there was 2 bad spots in wrestling in the last 2 weeks. But why is it that you guys try to defend yours? And I accept that Logan Paul and Ricochet had no business doing what they do or what they tried to do in the ring. But these hardcore fans, these IWC, I swear to God, this is not meant to be smart ass and funny, but there's an avatar that these guys possess, and it's like they live in their own world. When people make comments, they live in a basement, they're neckbeards, they live on a computer. I understand the frustration and the connotation that comes with that, because they all have this same thing. Typically, they don't have anything going on enough that makes them appreciate the meaning of health in life. Because they sit there all day, they're never put into jeopardy. To ask them if they want to be dropped on their head. And they aren't able to weigh the consequences of being dropped on their head. But here we go. Let's do this, IWC. Let's do this, anybody who defended this. What is the number? What is the number that you will allow me to walk into your house, pick you up, and drop you on your head? Is it $100? Is it $500? $1,000? $100,000? What is the number? What is the number that you think is enough money that I should be able to just drop you and possibly cripple you for the rest of your life? So let's not talk about the last argument that they make of it's Kenny's body, he can do what he wants. Kenny Omega is on record talking about bouts of vertigo from a drop kick that he received and spine issues that he has to go to chiropractors to get corrected. And I found this, I don't know where I found this. This was on Twitter from somebody. I don't know if they were a medical professional or somebody just talking shit, but I thought this was very interesting. They said, Kenny Omega is an accomplished professional wrestler. He has a history of dealing with multiple health issues, notably severe neck and shoulder problems that have progressed to the point where he can only lift the weights as heavy as 45 pounds. Additionally, he has been battling vertigo for the past 3 years. Despite his deteriorating physical condition, he has been known to continue participating in high-risk matches and high-risk spots. However, it is concerning to see him being dropped directly onto his spine in a recent match, especially given his known medical conditions. While professional wrestlers are often involved in calculated risk, this particular move seems dangerously excessive and potentially negligent. Wrestlers' well-being should always be paramount, and such actions not only put Omega's immediate health at risk, but could also have long-term implications. That's all. I mean, how do you argue with that? That's what I don't get. I don't get it. No matter what logo someone's wearing, no matter what company they represent, we as fans do have a responsibility. Just like stop clapping for that shit. Like somebody, it's okay for all the fans to go, ooh, we don't need you guys to do that. Like we can appreciate your art. We can appreciate how good you are at what you do. Just don't do that anymore. That seems like a way more reasonable request. But, you know, I have to address it. It's over. I'm not going to talk about it anymore. We can move on and let's finish the show with our power rankings. All right, so last week we started a new segment on the show. We called it the Casual Power 10, and I absolutely loved it. We had 4 people who were on the casual committee, and we voted our top 10 power rankings for women wrestlers. I averaged them out. Came up with a cool list. This week, this shit blew up. We had like 10 people submit votes. I love this segment. It's here to stay. Next week, we'll do tag teams. But this week, we're doing the top 10 male wrestlers in WWE as voted on by the casual wrestling community. Number 1, with the most first place votes, we got Jey Uso. It's pretty straightforward. I think that most people saw that coming. Number 2, Seth Rollins. Number 3, Roman Reigns. Number 4, Damian Priest. Number 5, Gunther. Number 6, LA Knight. Number 7, Cody Rhodes. Number 8, Jimmy Uso. Number 9, Dirty Dom. And number 10, Finn Balor. Now, there was something interesting I wanted to do. I thought this would be fun. After looking, because I got to go look at everybody's list, and there are some huge disparities in different lists. It's fun to see how different people view wrestling and their likes and dislikes. But I thought it would be fun. I'm going to give everybody who voted this week a little bit of homework. I'm going to talk about something from your list, and you're going to need to come into the Discord at some point in time this week and defend your decision to me for fun. 100% for fun. This is not meant to turn personal. This is not meant to get ugly. This is for fun. I think it's a fun way to interact. So here's the things from each people's list I want to talk about. Let's start with my guy Snuggles. He's my OG. He's been riding with me since the very first time I started doing some podcast stuff. He's been there. So Snuggles, we got to talk. I need you to defend to me how Roman Reigns is number 5 on your list. You're going to have to defend that to me. Now, my boy DJ Wavy D, you're going to have to explain to me how you have Dominic Mysterio over Damian Priest. My boy Gossamer, you got to defend your choice of putting Sami Zayn on a list of singles competitors. When's the last time Sami Zayn got into a ring by himself? Tag teams are next week, bro. Oshido Bonds, explain to me Jimmy Uso being in the top 5 of your power rankings. Outside of kicking Roman in the head, what has Jimmy done in an individual capacity? B-Master, you have Roman at 6. That's even more disturbing than Snuggles having him at 5. You're going to need to defend that. We Too Deep, MKE Mike, Ricochet? I got love for Ricochet, but he almost killed Logan Paul this past week. Like, maybe we leave him off the list 1 week. The Witters, you had Roman Reigns outside the top 3. You got to defend that. And T-Squire, I couldn't find anything wrong with your list, bro. I liked it. It was very in line with the way I think. I think you had a couple things different than me, but everything on there made sense. So you guys jump into the Discord. Let's debate it. You tell me, you guys defend why you made those decisions, and then you can pick apart my list because I don't think my list was any better, but it's fun to debate. But that is all I have for you guys this week. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel on YouTube or your favorite podcast network. The casual community shirts are coming soon. I've dropped a couple of previews into the Discord. Now I'm just looking for what supplier I'm going to use to get those made. The Nerdy D show is on hold for a couple weeks. We are actually going to, instead, I'm going to start live streaming for sure Friday night SmackDowns, but the intent is to start live streaming Monday Night Raw and Friday night SmackDown in the same way as like a Manning cast. I want you guys to jump in there with me and different people on different nights, whoever's available, to actually come on the show and we can talk wrestling for, 30, 45 minutes, and you can jump out. Someone else can jump in. It'll be fun. It's in the works. We're figuring it out. Tomorrow we're going to do a very, very, very dry run. It is not, it is not going to be a finished product. I'm kind of inviting the people who listen to this show to see it. I'm not going to promote it real heavily outside of that. We're just going to start trying to figure out like the nuances of how do you watch a wrestling show while talking about it. So we'll do that tomorrow. Be sure to check out Queen City 2K Wrestling Promotion. It is in the Discord. Make sure to listen to We Two Deep's Slapping Meat Wrestling podcast. He goes a little deeper than I do. He's got a little more factual knowledge than I do. I'm the overreact guy. He's the guy who comes in behind me and he's got all the real knowledge. So make sure, if you're listening to me, make sure you listen to him. It's all part of the casual community. And as always, I am the Notorious Nerdy D. Let's ring the final bell.
Step in the ring, if you ready, let's go. Ay, casual wrestling community show. You already know, talking WWE. Keep it rolling and hosted by Notorious Nerdy D. Ay, dope show that you gon' find. Tune in cause it's online. Hit 'em with a figure 4 leg lock, power driver or clothesline. We bringing that heat like the show, but you